Wait, I could record as well. Seems. Oh no, I can't.
Seconds. All right, I'm going to share my screen. All right. Everybody see my screen? All right.
Yes.
Welcome everyone again to Spotlight number 6, featuring architect Robert Thompson. That's also on the call. We're just gonna have a quick deep dive into the life and career of Robert. Prepared this brief presentation, scoured the internet and all the social media to pull together a few images that I kind of want to guide the conversation. Anyone can feel free to jump in, just raise your hand and ask any questions. But just to give a brief introduction or overview, this is an abridged timeline, Robert, that I will, just a quick bio. So you completed your bachelor's degree from Caribbean School of Architecture in 2004. And then you moved to Trinidad in 2005. Worked for a couple of years with Jennifer Smith, and then you moved to Germany, the Dessau Institute of Architecture, to complete your master's degree in 2007. You worked there in Germany and Switzerland for some time, and then you moved back to Trinidad because you loved it so much in 2008. You started Aki Workshop in 2015, and I have here, as a sort of footnote, a last bullet point here that I want to start the conversation on, that you won the Business of Architecture Emerging Practice Award in 2001, last year. Now, what made you, well, first of all, did I miss anything, Robert?
Yeah, that was pretty good, but yeah, I came back in 2010. When I came back in 2008, I just came back for the summer. So I actually moved back in 2010.
Okay.
Everything else was on point.
So what made you come back to Trinidad? And why did you go to Germany? It's quite a sort of interesting and unconventional path in a way, for somebody from the Caribbean to take.
Well, when I finished my bachelor's in CSA, I was helping another classmate who was applying for the same program with their portfolio. And they told me that it was free tuition. And I was like, wait, what? And the next year I applied as well, and I got in.
Right.
So that was the main motivation, really. Nothing kind of otherworldly.
Okay. And what drew you back to Trinidad after you finished in Germany?
I was always coming back here because I was always, Jennifer helped me to go to university, so I was always coming back here to kind of work for her.
Okay.
So we, because at the time the 2008 crash happened, we kind of decided, okay, just stay in Europe a little bit longer and kind of see what happens in Europe. But then Europe got a bit crazy, and I said, it's easier I just come back because I don't want to say there's more opportunities, there's more valuable opportunities here.
Okay.
For what I wanted to do with my path than there was in Germany, not knowing the language as well.
Mm-hmm. So you worked with Jennifer for some time. Yeah. Then you started Aki Workshop in 2015. What led to that transition for you? What made you feel confident enough to take a jump out to start your own practice?
Well, you're never confident, really. I just had to do it. So I left Jennifer in maybe end of 2013, and I went to work with a engineering firm in should go on as RM engineering. Now, when I was going there, I thought, oh, great. You know, we always have these complaints about engineering firms and MEP firms, and this was a firm that was looking to do kind of like the full service. So I thought, okay, I'll go in there and see how I could like shake things up and kind of see how we could fix some of those complaints from within. When I got there, it was kind of like, nah, all fight. So it just lasted for a year, and I left. And I said, you know what? I'm just gonna try it on my own.
Right. Okay. But did you feel like you needed a couple of projects, you know, like in the bag to take you over for the next 6 months or so, or was it like a whole hard start? Like, yeah.
I actually had a project, a hillside project, actually, that I was doing while I was there. And then I had a few other things that I was helping other people with. So I had enough. I mean, it was just me. You know, I didn't have a chick nor a child. So, you know, I could, you know, explore and experiment and, just fly, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that takes a lot of confidence though. That's, yeah. And all of people do it, but it's a tough decision to make in some instances.
Yeah, no, sure.
So I want to zero in because I feel like this was a big transition for you. And it's around the time when we met, actually, when you won this Business for Architecture Emerging Practice Award. And yeah. I feel like it coincided with your rebranding and you kind of pivot to focus or at least craft your practice around niche of hillside housing. So what kind of led to you applying to this? I know of it, but for anybody who doesn't know, Business of Architecture, it's a blog and a podcast, and you can jump in and explain better than me. Yeah.
So what it is it teaches firm owners. They talk about architecture firm freedom, and it teaches firm owners to, in a nutshell, start working in the business and start working on the business. Mm-hmm. And for me, I think it was around 2019. Things were kind of dwindling. I just had my son. And,
you can sign in here, okay?
And
Mommy will come and check on what you're doing. Don't submit anything without me, okay?
Oh. Can you mute your mic, please? Oh, sorry. Thank you. All right.
Am I frozen? Can you still hear me?
I can see you now, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so like kind of 2019 summer, I was kind of, things were dwindling and I was feeling like a bit hopeless. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And then I saw this this ad on YouTube for these guys. And I just said, you know, let me give them a call. And what kind of got me was the way they sold me the course. I thought, I need to learn this. And I joined it then. And then they themselves did a kind of rebranding of the program in kind of like mid-2020 heading into 2021. And in that rebranding, they did that kind of Emerging Practice Award. So anybody who came through the course could enter. And really what it was is a mechanism for promoting yourself.
Okay.
As well as promoting them. And what they said is that the people who were leading in the votes and the race were the people who were promoting themselves. And myself and another colleague was kind of like doing it because we really got into it. Because it's really important to you know, to be vulnerable and put yourself out there and kind of you know, show people who you are. Because then how else are people going to know you? And I won.
Yeah, this image here is a placeholder. I was hoping to show the video because I was one of your votes that voted for you. So we have to support each other. But I was hoping to play that video because it's a video of you describing yourself.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool. But that kind of segues into the other question I had for you is that you're amongst one of the more active local practitioners, local registered architects that are really active on social media. And I wanted to ask, did that play a role in you making that jump, or was it just sort of like an annex sort of marketing tool or promotional tool? Because you really use social media in an educational sort of way as well. When I scroll through your profile, it's not just to promote your work; it's really to educate the public.
Yeah. So in when I was doing the course, they encourage you to kind of plot out a vision for your practice, and you establish your purpose. And what really called to me was kind of like, how does my practice make an impact on the future generation of the Caribbean through increasing the accessibility of thoughtful design across socioeconomic boundaries? And to do that, I mean, you can't, it sounds like you're gonna be working for free and doing everything for everybody, but you can't, But what you could do is try to have a profitable practice that then allows you to be philanthropic and, offer your services to people who really can't afford it, because not many people can afford us, you know what I mean? But in doing this kind of social media outreach, you could, talk to more people and kind of connect with people on a level of just sharing information, because we should share information, because we are, as architects, responsible for promoting architecture.
Yeah, definitely. So in scrolling through your profile, one of the first projects when I learned about your practice was this project here that you did in collaboration with Trevor Horn Architects, the British architecture practice. And you were the architect of record on this project, right?
Yeah, somewhat.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
What do you mean when you say that?
Well, because an architect of record, deals with statutory, approvals and all this stuff. But this project was kind of in the bush and kind of just, it obeys all the rules, but it wasn't as straightforward as how it should be. So it was a 6-year headache, but it was a beautiful building and a beautiful process.
Right. So what did you? So in terms of what role did this play in your evolution to focusing on redirecting your practice to be one that kind of specializes in hillside housing? Was it pivotal in a sense?
Yes, definitely. This project, along with another one I did in Digger Martin, they were going on at the same time, and basically 6, maybe 7 years of just working on hillsides and just looking at the do's and don'ts and kind of deepening my knowledge in the do's and don'ts of building on a hillside. I thought, when I started reading and thinking about positioning and focus and differentiation, I thought, how about I just look at this this kind of like horizontal position or vertical position of just doing hillside residencies, because people say you don't want to cover yourself, but if you only do this, when you get a project, for one, you have to charge a premium, and for the other, if you don't get a project, you're not busy hunting everything else and competing with everybody, and you can actually spend time working in your business if you're small.
Yeah.
And hone your skills, deal with your system, deal with your processes, and become a better architect.
Yeah, definitely.
With focus.
Yeah. But which leads me to my other point, because you really market yourself as a specialist of hillside housing, and a lot of the projects, residential projects that are kind of cropping up now that architects, local architects do work on are in fact hillside houses, you know, so it's a great niche market to be in. But is it enough, you know, to carry you? Like this project here, which I really like actually, it's called Sortdew. Am I pronouncing it correctly? My French is terrible. But yeah, is it enough? Like, and this is obviously a project that you've been working on for some time. You know, you can tell like it's really well developed. But is it paying off? You know, the specializing, and what would you do differently if you could go back a couple of years?
So the thing is, when we say specialized, it doesn't mean we don't do anything else. It just means we're not marketing for everything. We're marketing for just this. So if somebody comes to me and they want me to do anything else, as long as it's profitable, of course I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
You know,
but
so
this
it's
is
not.
This is what you want to do, in a sense. This is what
I want to do. This is what we go for. But again, it's a business. So if something comes that I don't have to compete for, one, and it's profitable, then definitely I'll do it. I'll do a door handle. I won't promote that I'm doing a door handle.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I'm sure that you're very well aware of this because you're very active and like very involved in the sustainability sort of movement, and you know, building on hillsides is not really the best thing for the environment. So I'm wondering if that sort of plays a role in your choice to focus on hillside housing, or is it just a sort of like happy coincidence, a byproduct that they can coexist and they could really feed off of each other?
No, definitely. I mean, the slogan is responsible hillside living, you know? Right. So, I mean, we have collaborators that, you know, have a lot of experience with dealing with hillside. It's not just us saying, oh, we're just gonna stick this house there. You know, we're studying constantly, deepening our knowledge on, you know, what's possible and how these buildings impact their sites, impact the environment. And, you know, we have to be considered in how we do these things, you know, extremely.
So I'm trying to trace back from even your time at Jennifer Smith in a sense, because I can see there's a higher level of focus on craft and local craft particularly, which is a major component in sustainability. Is that something you try to like incorporate or bring through in all of your projects, or is it just?
I mean, definitely, we have to work with the labor we have, and actually, it's almost like designed to the scale of the people that you use, because that way you could find the beauty in what they do, as well as try to push their limits a little bit, but also give them freedom to kind of bring their own into it, and then, you know, that, you know, feeds back into the community, especially up in Parametricism, because this project is up in Parametricism. It's going to be up in Parametricism. So we're looking at people who are already up there building to come and help with this kind of project.
Right. Okay. So do these projects come to you, or they like, do you pick and choose? What I mean is that because either you're very lucky in terms of you get clients that really fits your ideology, or is it just effective marketing that brings these projects to you? So they come looking to you because they have a kindred kind of like spirit or intent for their projects.
I think it's a little bit of all of that, but I think what I learned, I defined what my no was. I defined what I won't do.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me then focus on what I really want to do. So I decided I don't want to do any government work.
Okay.
So then I, with that out of my mind, I focus on, you know, what I really want to do. And like this project I actually found the site for the client, and now we're at this point where we're about to start building stuff.
But do you have like a know when it comes to, let's say, commercial practice, like commercial work? When I say commercial, like retail, office space, that sort of thing. I guess it depends on the project, but I'm just.
It will depend. It will depend. I mean, come on, if it's a massive project, definitely I'll take it. But it will depend on,
okay,
you know, the criteria, I suppose.
Right.
But I have my soul connect to this sort of work. My soul connect to working on hillsides, working on sort of really considered homes that are, you know. So basically, I have a mission to do 7 houses in total, and it's kind of creating my own magnificent 7. And that's my focus, to look for these 7 houses. And after that, I kind of want to, hopefully, they're all amazing, and hopefully I could do a book one day and say, look at what I did, you know, and then probably sell the practice if I can.
Okay. A book on responsible hillside living, or
yeah,
not specifically hillside, or just houses.
Responsible hillside living.
Okay. So how far along are you on that journey?
I think I have 2 of the houses already. I'm looking for the other 5.
Okay. Okay. I just want to segue into another project that I saw, and I was really following, actually, which is Carmel House. And you had this project up, which is why I asked initially about the strong vernacular references, because I definitely see it coming through in your work, you know, and I mean, this is something that we could all, you know, appreciate, but it's very hard to sort of replicate in a contemporary sense. So when I saw this project, I thought it was really kind of like successful in how it replicated those elements, you know, but not trying to copy them per se, like outright, you know, but like what role would you say, like, I'm asking the question a different way, but like in terms of the influence of the vernacular, which is kind of linked to why I asked you about commercial projects. Do you feel like you need to incorporate in projects for it to be, you know, to feel like architecture, Caribbean architecture in a sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the biggest motivator behind this project was the client. She sent me that house, and she said she wants me to design her a shack.
Design a shack.
Yeah. And I was like, well, can we meet halfway? And you know, this was the result of our collaboration. And that's the important thing. Like, a lot of people don't like the client part of residential work, whereas we kind of like them being included, but not leading the engagement. Mm-hmm. Right? Including your part, you're collaborating, but I am still recommending what we do. You're not telling us what to do. We're not order takers. We're working together. So you know,
was this shack enough for her?
Sorry?
Was this like enough of a shack for her, given her original?
She had to get used to it, but it did carry across the qualities that we identified the qualities that she really liked inside of the shack, and translated it within this structure, and she was really happy with it. I mean, I'm hoping they build it soon.
Right. Okay. This next project is an artist residence, which I can see, again, all the different vernacular features and elements coming out. Like, is this your preference, and work coming to you like wanting that, or is this sort of push and pull between architects and clients to arrive at this over time?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to have that push and pull, because without that tension and that force, you'll never get to something beautiful. You know, if you have too much freedom, it might just end up being too much of you. And if they're too picky, it'll just end up being a nightmare. So you have to kind of find a happy medium by inviting them in just enough so that they feel included, you know,
Right.
but understanding that you're leading. And with this project, it was interesting because the client actually just built something else on the site and said, "Oh, I'll build this somewhere else." So this is a really kind of horrible, because we went through such a process with this and he just decided not to build it. It's annoying.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I built a stupid A-frame instead, but it's okay. But I was really happy with the solution. He as well, but I just think it wasn't in his nature to do something like this.
But is it sort of site specific, your approach? Or like, for instance, if you had a similar sort of brief, but the site changed, you know, how would that impact?
It would never be the same. So that's why when he said that to me, I was kind of like, yeah, but
exactly.
it's work, you know? So then that's why I did these CGI images and I sent it to him afterwards, like, see what you could have had?
Right. Yeah. Was that for like a full kind of architect service, or was it sort of partial?
It was partial.
Partial. Okay. So he always had the intentions of taking this over and doing something.
Yeah, we finished construction documentation and he was gonna build it. Because again, he has a certain way of building, because this this was inspired by another property he has in San Souci.
Okay.
So he would have brought his own flair to it as well. So it would have been I was really interested to see what it would have become. And it could have been complete shit, but it also could have been beautiful. But yeah, it just went up in a complete different direction.
Okay.
Which is fine for him, you know?
So yeah, I mean, that's okay. You know, that this give and take, there's a push and pull. But you know, we're in a time where a lot of architects don't see projects through, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's great that you had the opportunity to work through that project that you collaborated with Trevor Horn on the hillside with, you know, amongst others. But I'm wondering, like, does that impact the type of project you're willing to take on, you know, in terms of, are you okay with only doing partial services on projects ad infinitum, you know?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not. That's why I have the 7. And you know, when you know those are the ones that are going to get built. You know?
Yeah.
And you give a certain you give a lot more to those ones, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, as architects, I know it's difficult for us to let go, but we need to learn. You know what I mean?
True. Yeah. I asked because as I mentioned before, you know, there's a high level of like dedication to craft in your work. I can see it, you know, like you're trying to hone this craft, and it's very much in the manner of like a master builder sort of approach, you know, where even though you're not building it yourself, you're very much intimate with the processes, the tools, and like this approach to make the mundane beautiful. You know what I mean? Like a pulley could be used in a very interesting way, which is why I love that Trevor Horn project, you know, because it's a steel frame. that's suspended really high above sloping sites, but it's really nice, you know.
Yeah, it's well made.
Yeah, it's well made. Yeah. So having said that, like, what are you willing to say no to? Like, let's say there's a huge hillside project that could be one of your Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
And the client wants to do a colonial type, you know, house on it.
It wouldn't be one of my Magnificent Sevens.
But it could be, no. The reason why I ask is because, as you say, there's always a push and pull, you know. So, like, where would you just say flat out, or would you try, you know, to sell?
Someone once gave me some advice that, you know, sometimes it's not all about, you know, having 100% control. Sometimes you could make one or two moves in a design that makes it yours. And I think in doing all these works that don't get built, it's not just just doing these. I'm learning from every project I do.
Yeah.
And creating a catalog of, you know, things to explore. So, you know, that's also something where you could take, okay, what can I take from this process? You know?
Right.
And what could that client take from this process as well? It's not just me. It's also about educating that client.
Yeah.
You know?
You can almost argue, because I really like your Magnificent Seven metaphor, because each of the Magnificent Seven, the only thing they have in common is intent, right? And that's to be grand, really, right? But they each, apart from that, they're all very much trying to be different, you know, like trying to be one of a kind, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that your intent as well with the Magnificent Seven hillside houses? Is there some sort of exploration in terms of materiality?
Yes. I want to build really raw, honest architecture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely do.
And it's difficult to sell that to clients.
So that kind of segues into this next project that you have here. I don't know the name of it, but your description of it on the internet was really focused around social responsibility of architects, you know, in terms of offering your skills and services to those who may not be able to afford the fees you would conventionally charge, let's say, right? And working with the basic elements that are there to sort of create spaces that can still uplift the spirit. I'm not quoting you verbatim there. I'm just kind of intimating. Like, but so what's the big idea behind this? Because it's sort of running parallel to your Magnificent Seven, but it's still tied to the whole sustainability agenda. So what's the big idea there?
So this project is, so we have, my wife used to work in Matua, and she got really connected to 3 boys, and they're in a kind of rough situation because their fathers are drunk and they live in a house that's falling down. And this was designed for them. And myself and Gillian Goddard, who runs ARC, started exploring another initiative called DIRT, which is Doing Impossible Relevant Things, where we're looking at exploring indigenous methods of building to kind of bring that back into the rural communities. kind of look at building with round earth, look at building with mud and clay, and try to use those cheaper materials they're slower to build, but cheaper materials to kind of, somebody wants to build a house, the community comes together and they, kind of own these skills that if, let's say, somebody with a multi-million-dollar house wants to do something around dirt, the community have these skills that somebody could get hired from the community to come and build in town, let's say, your multi-million-dollar round dirt house, So
Yeah.
that's the kind of thinking behind this. And we're still doing proposals to get funding to build it. But this is the pet project. This is very dear to us.
Okay.
Dirt means doing impossible relevant things. I know it's weird. We just made it up.
Oh, it's cool. That's cool. With round earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very appropriate. Habitat for Humanity has a similar sort of initiative where they reached out to TTIA a few times to collaborate on projects. It's more disaster relief type efforts, but it extends way beyond that, but it's really providing housing to those who can't afford it, but really getting your hands dirty in a sense, in a literal sense.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you raised that idea or notion of collaboration, because that kind of segues, funnily enough, into my next question for you. And it's your studio. It's where your studio is located on Belmont City for the Road, right? And you've been doing a lot of renovations on it, but it's a really nice gingerbread house that you've been restoring, in our discussions. What's really interesting about this is that you have a whole bunch of different creatives that work in the space. Was that by design, or is that just into it was free space for rent and people just kind of came in?
Not really. I'm just working here because I know the client, and we all know the client, and we're working on the building. So the other creatives, they handle. I think the neighbors are having a fight. The other creatives handle the Wajang discotheque in the back.
Yeah.
They renovated, and we're kind of working on keeping the building up to nick and working on a phased kind of method of restoring it.
Was that always the intention when you moved in, to sort of
work on it
and understand it?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's cool. So that space at the back, which is Wajang Discotheque, how is it going? How is the renovations going? I know COVID would have put a huge damper on that, but what's the intention? Resume soon?
Yeah, it's done. I think there should be a session coming up maybe next month.
But first of all, for anybody who doesn't know, what is Wajang Discotheque?
Well, they do different programs. Wajang Discotheque they have a sort of like a kind of oldies party every 2 weeks or once a month, I believe. Just kind of like exploring old calypso. And they also do they have a program on YouTube called I'm from the House of Music, which they speak to different creatives like Wenderman Warren, Robert Young, different people, and they talk about their connection to music. It's a really interesting program. You can look it up on YouTube. And this space is used for that. It will also be used for films. So it's kind of like a cultural space that they're developing.
Okay. Well, the last time we hung out, which was when they had just lifted those restrictions around COVID, and they had a little table tennis session in the back there. Yeah. That was fun. And hoping that we could resume those soon.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. That would be a nice way for everybody to kind of link up on bond.
Yes, definitely. I have one last question for you, Robert, and it's something that you mentioned to me that night, actually, last year. And you use a lot of digital tools. And you definitely showcase those in your marketing. But you also do a lot of hand sketching, in your you definitely show a lot of process.
Yeah.
But you also, in Germany, you'd mentioned that you kind of really got into parametricism, parametric design.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, how does it come through in your work, or does it,
I haven't had a chance to really explore it here yet, but I have a collaborator in Indonesia that I do work with, and that's where I get to play with that, because they're doing more of that kind of work.
Right.
We were looking at, we were doing a project here recently where we're doing a piece of jewelry that would be sort of manipulated and personalized by your movement. So let's say carnival time, if you wanted what we call a vibe of your carnival experience, we could actually algorithmically take that data from you and create a vibe, or a kind of a pendant or a ring or some kind of jewelry that would actually embody that moment. So we're working on that now, and it should be out later this year.
Okay, sounds interesting. Parametricism is people always sort of think of it as these really sort of free-flowing organic structures, but it's really just replicatable processes,
Yes.
and it's really about iterative design as a huge component to it, responding to different inputs.
Yes.
To get a out. We're all parametric, quote unquote, in a way.
Exactly.
We zoom out.
Exactly.
Exactly. But I'm wondering if, I asked the question because I was wondering, because I have a similar interest, actually, and it's very difficult to sort of see it to apply it, I should say, in particular contexts. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering if there was a way that we could probably try to integrate some more of those elements, because they're very productive in a sense, like solar studies, for instance. In a building, and it doesn't need to result in like this really kind of organic forms.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, if you're using Revit, you're using parametricism. Using ArchiCAD, you're using parametricism. It's just you're just not talking to the computer behind the scenes as much, right? But you're doing it. Anything that you could easily change. A BIM model is parametric. So we're really doing it, but just not on a kind of form creation level.
Oh yes, definitely. So what's next for you? Level.
I really want to establish this DIRT initiative, get it going, and then explore other parts of the other countries. So we're exploring Indonesia, Mexico, other Caribbean islands. We're not trying to grow, we're just trying to expand our reach. Do as much as a small practice can do and be sustainable. Not like, we're trying to be a company of one. Well, I'm saying like that.
But you are growing a little bit, though, at least. You have a few a few in your practice now, like four.
Yeah,
Four?
yeah. And that's really just to sort of practice setting up systems.
Yeah.
Work on setting. You can't work. You need to test the system you set up on someone. You know? So it's really, I have two people with me and a marketing team, and that's enough. It's enough.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, we've been talking for 45 minutes, 48 minutes.
Wow.
And I'm wondering if anybody has any questions for Robert. See, Ellen Abraham asked, what is dirt? Well, you answered it. That's when you repeat it. Okay. No questions?
Yeah, I have it's one question. Yeah, I think that the sharing was very good, very inspiring. I'd say, and what came out of it was really a sense of process and so on. So maybe Robert, you have mentioned it before, but maybe it could be articulated again or a bit more. How, apart from your practice, of course, but let's say in terms of your desires, your passions, what drives you in architecture and in design and creativity. What are the different ways, the different mediums in which you communicate that, let's say to other architects and other professionals, other people in the creative space, to potential clients and to the wider public, and how is that received? Should have, spoke about your use of social media and what have you, but how has that been received? One, and two, how could you advise larger established firms in the effective use of social media or engaging the public and engaging society, and smaller, less established firms? What are they learning?
All right. Well, so the tools that I use is conversation. Right? Conversation is the more, and social media gets you a conversation. And that is really the bottom line of any sort of marketing or media, to get a conversation. Right? If you're not getting, the conversation then defines what happens next. And yeah, that's the most important thing, But for a larger firm, it all depends on who your target audience is. You have to know your audience. You're not just shooting at everybody. You need to be a larger firm. You must know what you did to get large, so you have a target. So just focus on them. For a smaller firm, develop where you're going. Develop what you want to do. There's a transition. You have to transition from being a technician to a business owner. And where a lot of us just end up in just working away, and then neglecting the business. And then we don't have any. Where does projects come from? If somebody don't refer you, where does it come from? So you have to be out there, conversations, and working on your image. Hope that answered the question.
Yep, certainly did. Appreciate your perspective.
I wanted to ask you another question, actually, that kind of that a kid kind of sparked, and it's around and it's very relevant actually because Lloyd D'Souza did a presentation on it recently, and I saw Boat issued a memo on it a couple of days ago, and that's on the issue of this very gray area of advertising versus marketing, and I share the opinion that using social media is sort of not advertising per se. It's like your portfolio online, but it's still a very gray area for a lot of people. What's your take on that? Where should the line be drawn?
If you're still sharing your screen, and you could go on Instagram and you could look up AIG architects, or look up CADCO, or look up all these unregistered practices that are on social media, just promoting the practice of architecture in their own way. And then us as architects, where are we? That's my sort of answer to that. We are in charge of promoting architecture, right? We can't sit around that, TTIA not doing anything. We have to do it.
Ricardo, if I
Dean
may.
has a hand up. Oh, Lloyd, yes.
Yeah, I couldn't find the hands up on my screen here, so I had to intervene. First of all, I haven't seen Robert since he used to work at building number 7 here at Fernandez. This is the time I really, saw him a few times, and so it's been years. So, just want to say I'm very impressed, with your work, and
thank you.
And you've attained a position. I think most architects, on reflection, like myself, perhaps, would want to be, where you are, where you could choose position or direction. For us who, I'm speaking for myself, I suppose, who got into the business of the architecture profession through, a fairly large company in Trinidad, and found themselves kind of streamlined or buckled down into the corporate world of architecture and doing certain types of buildings, where and this is a lesson I think for young architects, I think, where one would say, well, I need to get into a big firm so I could get experience and so on and so on. But the other side of it is what you have done, and maybe other young architects I see now, doing stuff on their own and really carving out a niche and a set of compilation of work that is really, really interesting. And I wasn't really aware of your firm as Aki Workshop or the things you've just described. So I'm certainly going to go on, and do a search on your work. And I just looked up here on my phone as you were talking on the what do you call it, the discotheque, the Wajan discotheque, and there's a 1 hour thing there with Robert Young, I think, which I'm going to enjoy tonight, perhaps. The second thing is, so I really commend. I mean, you're doing amazing work. It reminds me, the last spotlight we had here was with the, I forgot his name, in Grenada, I think, who did some exceptional work too. So, it's a take from the corporate world. I've been bogged down in interiors and corporate buildings and working for big clients, thinking it's security and so on. But you I think, enjoying, I think, what an architect would really like to be. So I commend you on that. The second thing is the topic of advertising. And yes, I was going to bring up, Ricardo mentioned the fact that the registration, our TT Board of Architecture just issued a memo reminding members of the advertising regulations. And it struck me because, yes, I was asked to present a paper some time ago, which I did, and I did some research between the regulations of advertising for TTIA versus the Board of Registration and RIB and so on. And I think my conclusion is we are lagging. Our rules and regulations here are lagging in really the way the world has come around. And like you said, go on social media now, every architect who wants to advertise on social media is doing so, but it's a way of, it's the new way of disseminating your work. I mean, before, those who can afford it can go buy a very expensive, book on architecture by a certain person, and those books are costly. Now your work is free online if you want to present it. I follow a few of them, and they're quite good. There's one social media website I follow on Facebook, African architecture, and I'm amazed, of the kind of stuff. While it's not by, some of them are by African architects, but a lot are by foreign architects working in Africa, and very amazing, impressive work that is climatic in design and addresses all the aspects of architecture for local context and materials that they use. If anybody wants to go in it, Facebook, African architecture, amazing work. And those are the things I think that, because in Trinidad, we live in a kind of isolation in terms of getting out there to travel and see the world of architecture. And there's nothing like experiencing a building in real life, And apart from getting expensive books, the only way is social media. And so I think RIB and all those EIA, I think all those rules of advertising now are off the shelf. I don't think it's applied anymore. So I think why our registration board just this week issued a memo. What prompted that all of a sudden? I have one perhaps explanation of why it was done, but I wouldn't mention it because of something that recently I saw in the papers. But it struck me that perhaps that was connected. But on that topic, I just want to say I think the TTIA and registration and Board of Architecture here really need to follow up on the whole topic of advertising, because I think it's the only way that we could get. The world has changed, so we gotta move with the times, and this restriction on advertising doesn't make sense. But
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, thanks, Lloyd. Thanks for that. And I completely agree with you. I can't remember. I was trying to remember the details, but I can't. But I watched a TED Talk a few months ago by the founder of Architizer at architectural blog online, who's also an architect. And he's pro social media, but what he was talking about was how much does this impact the feedback loop between a building being designed, a building being erected, and people's reaction to it, right? It's gone from years, to instantaneous, in the sense that you can get that feedback before you even get out of schematic design.
Yeah.
Whereas before, from the masses, whereas before the feedback loop was really, really lagging, and what that has impacted, and you can almost argue that has that sort of immediacy has sort of like kind of pervaded many aspects of life, but it could be a bad thing, but it could also be a good thing depending on your outlook,
Ricardo, another point to that is if more public buildings here were supposed to go through, because that's an easy way to reach the public. If more public buildings here were supposed to go through that process of kind of like getting sign off from the public through social media, a lot of improvements would happen. There will be a lot more interaction. People will connect more with architecture, connect more with us, instead of feeling like we are this thing that people are afraid to call us. Architect, I can't afford you. You know what I mean? As Steen as is on it. So.
Yeah, how are you doing, guys?
All right.
Yeah, all right, yeah. So I mean, it was really on that on that same topic. I mean, you know, Ricardo and I talk about these things. A few of us always chat about it. Robert and I have spoken about these things before as well. And you made a very strong point about the other persons who represent themselves to be architects. And they all know what they're doing. And they have significantly higher following than probably all our registered architects combined.
Yep.
What do we say to that, right? And how is that regulated? I have even been able to find these persons in some ways committing fraudulent evidence of their qualification.
Yep.
Yeah. So what I'm saying about that is that unless we go into a policing method and looking at investigating who is misrepresenting themselves and taking action against it, then well, what is left for us to do? And then we have to, so I think it's always several pronged. It's always going to be a matter of progressing with our ideas and vision of what advertising means, or engaging, because the reality is that forget about the word advertising. We need to engage with our society. So if that is the goal, if engaging with our society is the goal, then let us look at what are the things that we can ethically use to engage with our society in this year moving forward. Maybe that's the question versus determining how does an architect advertise, but how?
I mean, the thing is I think it's all to do with unfair advantage. And how does marketing give you an unfair advantage if one person does it and one person doesn't?
Mm-hmm. You know what,
Yeah.
Robert, and I think it's something that I touched on, education.
Yeah.
You demonstrate your expertise and you don't try to knock somebody else down to level the playing field. You have to demonstrate why you are the expert, you know, and unless we're able to, and we continue to effectively do that, we can't just say it. We have to demonstrate, we have to show it, you know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, social media is a tool, but fortunately, that you can get that instant feedback loop where you can educate the public. You can reach vast amounts of people in an instant, and you know, like you could instantly impact somebody's impression on physical space that didn't have that disposition before. You know.
But one of the things is what Robert said, which I like the explanation, the expression he uses. You carry on a conversation. You're already conversing. You're expressing an idea. You're throwing it out, and it's like talking to somebody, you know, casually. Who wants to respond will respond. Who catches what you're saying and want to agree with it or disagree with it would respond. But it's just carrying on a conversation. And for professionals architecture, you don't really have to. You're not promoting your work. You're just talking about your work. And to me, it's the decent way of advertising.
Yeah.
You're not selling. You're not selling.
You're just expressing your view, but you know, it's engaging people in conversation and ideas, and I think that's where we have to move to, because in the long run, it helps and if we express ourselves effectively and properly, then it will have the positive effect of engaging, or people appreciating that the professional architect has something to say. And maybe there are more architects in Trinidad who have something to say, and you probably go find or search for them and distill what you want to, distill what you like from all the searches that you do and come up with and get engaged and be educated along the way.
Yeah, we as a collective have to become a bigger voice.
Yeah, yeah.
In this medium,
Yeah.
instead of like just kind of shying away from it, because we keep wanting to, outreach. Outreach is easy. Outreach doesn't have to take anything big. Outreach is just posting something.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody is involved in a neighborhood chat group of some sort. Social media, whether it's for security reasons, like in my neighborhood, you have security chat groups and everybody says something and you respond. Maybe if the members of our organization here, our professionals here, even engage engineers as well, we create a professional chat group. So we communicate, and then we have a interaction, multiplying every day, somebody seeing it, and then other people will start to follow, and then you have a whole new expression that's taking place on the architecture or architecture and art and whatever. So you can put anything you want on it. It doesn't have to be buildings alone, but it could be another topic associated with architecture, art, interior works, or some art you saw that you're exposing to somebody. It's like listening to TED Talks, but instead, we are talking.
It's really about promoting the architect's thinking. Because right now, our thinking is not valued.
Exactly.
What's valued is a piece of paper that we produce, right? And that's what we need to have more people understand that, look, the thinking is what's valuable.
Yeah.
All of us are architects and all of us think differently. So you're getting a completely different solution from all of us,
But it's not only thinking, it's also our process. And that's a very, very important aspect of it. It's the process that we take that starts thinking, conceptualizing, listening, conversing, engaging, all of those various things. And it's a process. And this is one of the things that I think, Robert, you've been doing quite well. I see, we are on LinkedIn together, and I see your posts, and you're doing a really fine job with it and speaking in a language that can be generally understood. And that's very important too. It's how we speak as well.
Yeah.
How we communicate it. So we can communicate, but it's how you communicate it to be able to, for it to be effective. Otherwise, it's just talk.
I'd like to make a contribution. Jason Scarlett here.
Hey, Jason.
Hi. All right. So, Bobby, firstly, I congratulate you in terms of where you've reached, and it's been interesting, the conversations that we've been having. I've often been of the view that there are too many singular entities out there that's in the profession, and there's collaboration. And it's certainly a pleasure having conversations with you. Whenever we have our struggles, within the profession and otherwise. So that being said, I think that you're doing a very good job, and I'm very proud of you. On the topic of advertisement, I will say that I too received a letter from the Board of Architects, and I think that the current system that the board is governed by, it's considered, in my opinion, delusional, right? I'm also of the view that, again, on the topic of advertisement, the current rules, it's certainly archaic, right? And you said it, Bobby, which is, when you look at social media and look at who is advertising, and the followers, right? And essentially, those draftsmen, so to speak, who are jeopardizing the profession, jeopardizing the construction industry. And I'd go as far as saying raping us architects, right? There has to be a further discussion, right? Where we can perhaps look at what we can do, how we can get involved, how we can collaborate to fill that gap, right? So that means that let me end by saying that this spotlight is about you, right? And again, keep up the good work. I'm very proud of you, and I look forward to seeing where you grow as a professional.
I will just chime in here quickly. I know early in my term as president, we did have a town hall that tried to deal with this issue, and it was kind of shut down. But what we'll do again is to set up another town hall and have a conversation again, because it's interesting that this evening was supposed to be about you, but somehow other issues are coming out, and this is the, it's not the forum. We need a full forum, a full hour and a half to just prosecute this again. No, seriously, because how do you transform in our modern society and make the changes and educate and all the good things that everybody else was saying if you're not on those platforms, and that's where that's where a lot of people are. You don't find that people look at buildings and as before and learn from it, because we have a different way of learning. Our young people are operating differently. They react more to what's in their hand, right? That device in their hand, and they react and they respond to that. I mean, how much Twitter was selling for?
Yeah.
40 billion US, right? And I don't think any of us will have a project that size. So it's about where we can meet people, and we have to modernize things, and so that we don't get caught out, locked in history. So Ricardo and the rest of the executive, we will set up a town hall and just let people have their say and see where it leads us, because it's conversations, right? And then, of course, like everything else, it has to be framed by rules and whatever. It can't just be a wild thing, right?
Yeah.
All right. So that's all I have to say. Sorry about that, Mr. Spotlight, but so let's.
But
Ricardo, we can get back to the spotlight and see.
No, that's a pivotal part of the practice. So it's important to have the conversation.
Yeah. And see how much engagement we actually get, right? So that's great.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. So Ricardo, over to you.
All right. Thanks, Martin. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, on behalf of the TTIA, Bobby, I'd like to thank you. Thank you for sharing your time and your work with us. Well, thank you for allowing me to steal some images from your social media.
I have a feeling, I'm seeing Jennifer there. I have a feeling she'll have a question. Don't comment. No questions or comments.
No, I've very interesting presentation. Thank you very much, Robert. Of course, we're still in close contact, so I'm aware about things. And I think the conversation about the advertising, I think in a way, perhaps the board sent that out as a way of starting a conversation rather than say, I think basically what they're saying is these are the current rules. Unless we change the rules, we can't just. So I think it's a good idea to, as usual, rather than, that something happens and maybe it should start. We could have a town hall, or maybe somebody would write a kind of, you know, a few lines, a kind of position paper on where they think we could be going, and then we have a vote on it, you know. Maybe that will be something that will move it forward more quickly. But for sure, not only do we need to have a policy for that, but we have to have a more, I think, aggressive is the wrong word, but to be more pointed in terms of advising the public what the risks are of, you know, is the person that you're working with, is the firm you're working with, are they registered? And what does that mean if they are not registered? And what does it mean if you are registered? So I think we could, and that could be tied into you know, a bigger thing about the value of design, but I think we could start off with having some kind of, have a look and say, this is what we think we can do, and move from there. But definitely it has to change. It's out of date. But thank you, Bobby. That was really interesting. Great to see you.
Thank you. Right.
Thanks, Jennifer. All right. Anybody else have comments or concluding statements? All right.
Yeah, on behalf of the TTIA, Bobby, again, thank you. Thank you for sharing your time and discussing your work and your practice. Just to echo what everybody said, you know, great work, keep it up. Love the message that you're sending to the general public on the profession and what we're capable of. And yeah, looking forward to more stuff, including your Magnificent Seven, of course, the other 5.
Jennifer, we were trying to track you down to get you on a spotlight, but I don't know if I said Ricardo, but he
yes,
failed.
I have I have been
you were traveling.
Yes, I'll definitely do something. I'm going away quite shortly for a couple of months, but yeah, definitely I'll do something later on. Thank you for asking.
All right, thanks.
All right. Thanks to everybody for joining. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Bye.
Have a great evening.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Hey, Bobby.